2016, a French family was clearing out their attic when they found something wrapped tightly in old newspapers. At first, they thought it was just an old mannequin or forgotten belongings, until they saw the shape of a human skull staring back at them. The newspapers dated back to the 1950s, meaning this body had been hidden up there for over half a century. But who was it? And why had no one ever found it before? Police launched an investigation, and after weeks of forensic testing, they discovered the horrifying truth. The body belonged to a missing relative of the previous homeowner. No one had even realized he was gone. Imagine hearing strange noises in your home at night. Whispers, creaking footsteps, only to discover that someone had been living in your attic all along. This happened to a man in Washington state who kept hearing unexplained sounds above his bedroom. Finally, he decided to investigate. What he found made his blood run cold. Behind a loose wall panel was a hidden crawl space. Inside, a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and even a notebook filled with detailed notes. Notes about the man's daily routine. Someone had been watching him, waiting. The police were called, but by the time they arrived, the intruder was gone. To this day, no one knows how long he had been living there, or where he went. A family in Pennsylvania was going through their attic when they stumbled upon a small wooden box. It was dusty, old, and locked. Curious, they pried it open, only to recoil in horror. Inside were dozens of human teeth. Some still had dried blood on them. Who did they belong to, and why were they up here? The police were baffled at first, but after tracking down the house's previous owner, they found an explanation, though not a comforting one. The man had been a dentist. But why he kept these teeth in a box in his attic, no one knows. A couple in the UK was renovating their attic when they discovered a strange wooden panel beneath the insulation. When they pulled it open, they found something no one expected: a secret trapdoor leading down into a hidden basement. Inside was a small room with a single rusted bed frame, an old suitcase, and scattered children's toys. But the strangest part? The house's official blueprints showed no record of this room ever existing. A Texas man inherited his grandfather's house and started exploring the attic. Behind a stack of dusty furniture, he found a child-sized coffin with an actual skeleton inside. Police were called immediately. DNA testing suggested the remains belonged to a young girl who'd gone missing in the 1940s, but no records ever linked the case to the family. In 2016, a Tennessee couple bought an old farmhouse with the intention of restoring it. While renovating the living room, they pulled back the carpet and discovered a metal hatch bolted shut. At first, they thought it was just an old storage compartment, but when they forced it open, they found a steep staircase leading down into complete darkness. With only a flashlight, the husband climbed down to investigate. What he found was straight out of a horror movie. The small underground room had soundproofed walls, a steel-barred door, and heavy-duty chains bolted to the ground. A rotting wooden chair sat in the center of the space, with shackles lying nearby. In one corner, there was an old mattress with suspicious stains, along with a rusty metal bucket that had clearly been used as a toilet. Fearing they had stumbled upon the remains of a crime scene, the couple immediately called the police. Investigators later revealed that the house had once belonged to a man suspected of multiple kidnappings in the 1980s, though he was never convicted. The room had all the signs of being used to hold someone captive, but no bodies or remains were ever found. In 2015, a young couple in Rhode Island purchased a historic Victorian house for an incredible deal. The previous owners had suddenly moved out, leaving behind most of their belongings. Excited to start fresh, they began renovations, which included tearing down old wallpaper and fixing the insulation behind the walls. During one of these renovations, they uncovered something disturbing: a series of hidden peepholes in the walls, leading from a secret crawl space that ran the entire length of the house. Within the crawl space, they found a pile of empty food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and a notebook filled with unsettling messages. The journal had page after page of disturbing, rambling text, including passages like, "I watch them at night. They don't know I am here. They changed the curtains. Now I can't see as well. I heard them say my name. Do they know? Are they looking for me?" Realizing that someone had been living inside their walls, the couple panicked and called the police. Officers searched the house thoroughly, but found no one inside, only signs that someone had been sneaking in and out regularly. A small, loose panel in the attic led to the roof, where it was suspected that the intruder had been slipping in through an old ventilation shaft. The couple moved out immediately, unwilling to risk staying in a house where they might not be alone. In 2019, a woman in Seattle, Washington, started hearing strange noises coming from her attic. At first, it was just light scraping and tapping, but over time, it escalated to full-blown shuffling, thumping, and even muffled voices. Convinced that it was just an animal, she set up a motion-activated camera in her living room, hoping to catch whatever was making the noise. What she saw the next morning made her blood run cold. The footage showed a man emerging from her attic hatch in the middle of the night. He crawled down into her living room, looked around cautiously, and then walked straight to her fridge, eating her food before disappearing back into the attic. The woman immediately called the police, who arrived and searched the space. What they found was a horrifying living arrangement: a makeshift bed, piles of half-eaten food, and plastic bottles filled with urine. It appeared that the man had been living there for months without her knowledge. Even more chilling, he had a collection of her personal belongings, including a photo of her sleeping. The intruder was a homeless man who had sneaked into her attic when the house was being renovated. He had been watching her for an unknown amount of time, coming down only when she wasn't home or asleep. In 2021, a couple in Germany moved into a 100-year-old house that had been abandoned for decades. While replacing insulation in the attic, they noticed a loose wooden panel in the ceiling. Behind it, they discovered a small coffin, sealed with rusted nails. Fearing they had just uncovered human remains, they called the authorities. When the coffin was opened, what was inside was even more disturbing than they expected. It contained a bundle of cloth, wrapped around what appeared to be a wax doll dressed in funeral attire. Tucked under its arms were black and white photos of a young girl, each with her eyes scratched out. A small note, written in German, was also found inside. Translated, it read, "She must never wake up." Paranormal researchers later speculated that the coffin might have been part of an old superstition, possibly meant to trap a spirit. The previous owners of the home had disappeared without a trace in the 1960s, leaving behind only rumors about strange noises and unexplained cold spots throughout the house. In 2016, a woman in Ohio inherited an old house from her grandmother. The property had been in the family for generations, but no one had lived there for over 30 years. While inspecting the attic, she noticed a life-sized mannequin propped up in the corner. It was dressed in a tattered wedding gown, and its face was obscured by a thick layer of dust. She thought nothing of it at first, until she tried to move it. The moment she touched the mannequin, she felt something soft and brittle. A piece of the fabric crumbled in her hand, revealing a patch of skin. Horrified, she called the police. When authorities arrived, they confirmed her worst fear. It wasn't a mannequin at all. It was the mummified body of a woman, still wearing a wedding dress. After an investigation, they uncovered an old missing persons report from 1935, a bride who vanished on her wedding day. The house had once belonged to her fiancé, who, according to town rumors, had a violent temper. The case had remained unsolved for decades, until she was finally found standing in the attic, waiting. In 2018, a family in Australia began hearing strange scratching noises above their heads at night. At first, they assumed it was rats, but the sounds became louder and more erratic, sometimes accompanied by deep breathing and low growls. One night, the father decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, he climbed up into the attic, expecting to find a possum or a stray cat. Instead, he found a nest made of shredded insulation, filled with animal bones and human hair. Panicked, he backed away, only to hear a rapid scuttling sound behind him. His flashlight flickered, and for a brief second, he saw a pair of gleaming eyes staring at him from the darkness. He slammed the attic hatch shut and called the police. When officers arrived, they searched the space but found nothing, except the nest and a powerful, foul stench. The family moved out soon after, convinced that whatever had been living up there wasn't human. In 2015, a New York landlord was inspecting a newly vacated rental home when he noticed something strange about the blueprints. The official floor plan showed an extra room that wasn't visible anywhere in the house. Curious, he knocked on the walls and discovered a hollow space. With a crowbar, he pried the drywall apart and revealed a hidden room. Inside, he found a small bed, a chair, and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. But the worst part? There was no door, only a small air vent leading to the rest of the house. Whoever had lived there had no way in or out. The landlord contacted the previous tenants, who swore they had never noticed the hidden room. But some of them admitted to hearing strange noises at night, like whispers and faint knocking. The discovery sparked an investigation, revealing that a missing child from the 1990s had once been linked to the house. However, no further evidence was found, and the case remains unsolved.